All right, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy Jake, your favorite investor, and today we're going to answer the question of what makes a good flip. Now, I know that my handwriting isn't great. However, I have flipped over 900 houses, and I use the same formula, the same process with every single one of them. Not only 11 years ago when I first started, but to this day and heading into 2023, the formula and the process and the breakdown and the criteria, it all stays the same. I'm going to share that with you in this video and answer a lot of the questions that people often have when considering to either get into the house flipping game or scale their house flipping businesses up. It's no secret that in 2023, especially, that house flipping is a lucrative either side hustle, it's a lucrative career. It's definitely something, if you want financial freedom, that you have to add to your portfolio and add to your repertoire. So you might as well be doing it the correct way. And that's where your boy Jake steps in. So sit back, relax, take notes, and let's break this down so you get it right the next flip that you do, whether it's your first one, your 10th one, or 100th one. You want to make sure you get these key points in order to ensure that you are doing a good deal. Now, with any flip that comes across my desk, the person that's given it to me, the source of the flip, whether it's a real estate agent, whether it's a wholesaler, whether it's just someone in one of my networks trying to convince me to buy a house, they'll typically lean in and tell me, hey, this house is in an excellent neighborhood. Hey, the school district is great. Hey, it's close to the mall. It's close to the freeway. It's a great area for commuters. I get that all the time. But for me, rather than looking at that school district or the crime rate which the neighborhood's in or the zip code or anything like that, rather than focusing on that, I want to focus on the numbers and the trends and specifically the indication of whether or not I'll be able to resell this house. More than anything, I want to see data points in the neighborhood that the flip is in that show that I'll be able to sell it. And not only that I'll be able to sell it, but for what price point I'll be able to sell it for, how long it's going to take me to sell it, and what type of condition I need to put the property in order to sell it for that price point and within that timeline. So the very, very first thing that I'm going to do, regardless of the neighborhood, regardless of the school district, the crime rate, all that kind of stuff, is I'm going to look in the neighborhood that that flip is in. I'm going to look at similar houses, okay, that have recently sold within the neighborhood boundaries. I'm not going to another neighborhood. I'm not going to another city or another zip code, but I want to see stuff in that pocket that has proven to sell and sell recently. Okay, I want to get all the data points in that neighborhood so I have a good indication and expectation of what I can resell my flip for. And those trends, they're called comparables or comps. Those trends are what's going to tell us, A, whether we can sell it, and B, if we can sell it, for what price point. That is called the after repair value, and that by far is the most important factor. I don't care if it's in a bad school district or in a terrible crime zone. I don't care if it's a tiny little 500 square foot house. I don't care if it's a 5,000 square foot house. If there are trends in the neighborhood that show me, that prove to me that I can resell this flip for a specific price point, that is the one thing that allows me to advance and start analyzing this property as a potential good addition to my portfolio. So that's called the after repair value. That's the very first thing that we want to know. And let's say, for example purposes, I'm looking at a little 500 square foot property, but let's say I look at it and all the little properties that have sold in that neighborhood that are also around 500 square feet, also around the same year built and all that kind of stuff, let's say they've all sold for about $250,000. Or actually, let's say $300,000. Let's make it nice and even. If the trends in the neighborhood show me that I can sell my flip for 300 grand, right, then I will proceed assuming that I'll be able to sell my flip for 300 grand. So that's the very first thing. That's the anchor of all of our flipping business, is getting that after repair value. So if I can sell that for 300 grand, listen, I'm not a real estate agent. This house could be clear across the country, 3,000 miles away. So if I sell it for 300 grand, I'm probably going to have to pay a real estate agent commission. Typically with commissions, the seller is the one that pays not only the listing agent, the one that's selling it for me, but also the buyer's agent's commission as well. And typically that's about 5% of the transaction price. And that only comes off the top if the deal closes, if the sale is complete. So let's say 5% of 300,000 bucks, we take $15,000 right off the top. Half of it goes to my agent, half of it goes to the other agent. In addition to that, If this deal closes and I'm able to completely and successfully complete that transaction, there's also a third party called a title company. Sometimes it's called an escrow company or a closing attorney if you're on the East Coast. But their job is to coordinate the transaction, make sure the money comes in from the bank. Ownership of the property goes from me to the new buyer. They coordinate that whole thing. They put an insurance policy on it. They make sure everything is legit. Okay, that's typically between 1% and 2% of this transaction amount. So let's say for all intents and purposes, a little over 1%, that's about $4,000 that comes right off the top. So what that means is if I can sell this for a $300,000 after repair value, 5% goes to the two agents, so 15 grand comes right off the top, and another approximately $4,000 goes to the title company and closing costs. So 300 grand minus 15 minus 4 is $281,000. Now, my handwriting ain't great, but I'm a damn good house flipper, so bear with me and make sure that you could read everything on the screen here. So if I could sell this house for 300 grand and it's clear across the country, I don't care what type of neighborhood or what type of pocket it's in, as long as I have data points that show me there's a trend of what I can sell my property for based on similar properties to my flip that have recently sold in the neighborhood. If I could sell that for 300 grand, 15 comes off, which is 5%. Another 4 grand comes off because that's between 1% and 2%. These are realtor commissions and closing costs, meaning 281 comes into my pocket. Now, at this point, and only at this point, if I can read this trend and do all these numbers, at that point, I'll start analyzing the property that's put in front of me by the realtor or wholesaler or whoever it is that's trying to convince me to buy this property. So if this property comes across and the listing price or the asking price, the demand from the seller is that they want, 250 grand for it, and they say, this is a great deal, we're selling it at a discount. If I'm paying 250 grand and have to put, rehab and construction costs into it, right, I'll probably not make money. Even though it's being sold at a discount, there's not enough room for me to profit. So I want to look at the biggest spread possible between my purchase price and the most important number, which is the after repair value. Now, a deal that I just recently purchased that actually does have a $300,000 after repair value, I bought it for $180,000. They were asking 220 grand as the for sale price on the open market, and I made an offer of $180,000 and they accepted it. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like. 180 grand is what I'm purchasing the property for. Well, I already purchased it, but let's break down the whole structure on paper. And also, once I put it under contract, I had what's called an inspection period, where it's a few days. I think with this one, it was 5 or 6 days that I was able to go and inspect the property and bring my people to it. And so I had 5 different contractors go in and give me bids to take the condition that the property was in and put it into the condition that these properties were selling for in the neighborhood. And all the bids that came in, they were 35 grand, 37, 40, another one 40, then one at 42. So they were all pretty consistent. That's what I like to see. I ended up choosing the contractor who has really good relationships and history with house flippers. I chose the guy that gave me a bid of $40,000. Okay, so 180 to purchase it, 40 grand to renovate it. There's a couple of other numbers that also go into this side of things, okay? There's closing costs, which is the same as on this side, where it's a title company that comes and coordinates the transaction between 1% and 2% of this number. So let's say another 2 grand. And then also we got to pay utilities, gas, sewer, power, water, homeowners insurance, HOA fees if they apply. Now for this one, it wasn't in an HOA, but I do have to pay utility bills and have insurance on the property. So let's say for the timeline of a flip, which is about 6 months, let's say I'm putting about $2,000 into holding it. We call those holding costs. So that's also something that we need to put into this flip. So if I buy the deal for 180 grand, if I put $40,000 into renovating the property, if I put 2 grand into closing costs and another 2 grand into holding costs, that's 180 plus 40 is 220, plus 2 is 224. So in order to flip this house, I would need to put 224 into the deal, okay? In order to sell it for 300, and there's realtor commissions and closing costs on that side of things if the deal closes, where 281 comes out. The difference between these two numbers is my pure profit. 224 to 281 that would be 47 grand, right? Am I doing this right? No, that's 57 grand. 57 grand in total profit between these numbers. The larger this number is and the more consistent these comps, these trends are in the neighborhood, the better the deal. So to answer the question, it's numbers and trends in the neighborhood that make it a deal or not a deal for me, rather than the crime rate, the school district, the literacy rate, any of those little indicators that tell you, hey, it's a great neighborhood or it's a bad neighborhood. What matters to me is whether people are buying houses in that neighborhood, specifically similar characteristic houses to the house that I'm trying to buy. And if I can get that trend, I work backwards to get as big of a spread between these two numbers as possible. And if that spread is big enough, that's what indicates a good deal. You want to make sure you trust your numbers, you trust your trends, and you want to have a large percentage of profit in between these two categories in order to determine whether or not the flip is going to be a good one for you. This exact system with after repair value, after repair value, realtor commissions, closing costs, purchase price, rehab costs, closing costs, and holding costs. These numbers, this calculation is how I've flipped over 900 houses and continue to this day. It's just a matter of being disciplined with reading the trends, getting multiple bids from your contractor, making sure you put it under contract at a pretty good price point that's at a discount, and maximizing the amount of profit at the end of the day. This house flipping game is a lot different than most people think. Most people think this house has to be beat up as possible. Nope. You just need a motivated seller to get you something at a discount. Other people think that in order to sell it for top dollar, you need to be all Pinteresty and need to have all the skills that the people on HGTV have, where they're going into antique shops and doing all these unique little bells and whistles. That's not the case either. You just need to be able to do what's working in the neighborhood, regardless of what neighborhood it is, regardless of the school district or the zip code. You need to make sure you can find out what's working in the neighborhood and model that. And if you do that, your flipping business will thrive. It'll be very predictable. And that's how you start doing them over and over and over again. You guys, if you're interested in learning how to do this in a lot more detail, hit the link in the description below. We have coaching programs and mentorship programs. I work with people one-on-one all over the country. That's it for today, you guys. Happy investing.